Welcome to the California Housing and Community Development Training Series. Today's session is titled Formal Procurement Methods. This training will provide an overview of the various procurement methods, then go over the two types of formal procurement methods, followed by a more detailed look at both sealed bids and competitive proposals. There are four allowable methods of procurement. First, micro purchases. Second, small purchases. Third, sealed bids. And fourth, competitive proposals. Micro purchases and small purchases are referred to as informal procurements, whereas sealed bids and competitive proposals are referred to as formal procurements. Micro purchases can be used for the procurement of items that do not exceed $10,000 in the aggregate. Small purchases can only be used for the procurement of goods and services that do not exceed $250,000 in the aggregate. Sealed bids and competitive proposals must be used for the procurement of goods and services that exceed $250,000 in the aggregate. Again, sealed bids or competitive proposals must be used for the procurement of goods and services that exceed $250,000 in the aggregate. Sealed bids require the publication of a bid solicitation to ensure adequate competition and receipt of uniform and responsive bids. Sealed bids is the preferred method for procuring construction contracts. Sealed bid procurements are only feasible when certain conditions are met, including a complete, adequate, and realistic specification or purchase description is available to make sure that grantees can compare bids apples to apples, and that the contract award may be made principally on the basis of price. In addition, two or more responsible bidders must be willing and able to compete effectively for the business. Competitive proposals require the publication of an RFP or similar instrument. This is to ensure proposers submit uniform and responsive proposals and are primarily used to procure service contracts. Competitive proposals can be used to procure construction contracts in situations where sealed bidding is not feasible. Before using sealed bids, make sure the conditions for sealed bids are met. This includes developing a complete, adequate, and realistic specification and structuring the solicitation such that the evaluation of bids and contract award decisions may be made principally on the basis of price. The public solicitation should allow vendors sufficient time to prepare their bids to meet the specifications of the solicitation. The best practice is that at least two responsive bids should be received in order to award a contract. If only one bid is received, grantees must document all efforts made to increase the number of solicitations and promote fair and open competition. Solicitations must include what is being purchased, the terms and conditions the vendors must meet, and when and where the sealed bids will be opened. This includes the specific date, time, and location. This is because under sealed bids method, the bids are publicly open and read aloud for transparency. Awards must be made to the lowest priced, responsible vendor capable of complying with all bid specifications and capable of performing the work. The contract award must be a firm, fixed price contract. The following workflow depicts the timeline of key events for sealed bids. The procurement process begins with developing a complete, adequate, and realistic scope of work with an internal cost estimate. Next, confirm that the scope of work and specifications meet all of the criteria for the use of sealed bids. Then, the bid solicitation should be drafted, for instance, a public notice or a notification to trade publications, and that should be published to promote free and open competition. Conduct a sealed bid opening on the date and time and the location specified in the bid solicitation. Then, bids must be evaluated for responsiveness. The contract must be awarded to the lowest responsible bidder. Finally, the contract may be executed and administered. If the county needs to expand the existing kitchen and dining facilities at the community center to accommodate increased number of clientele, then the sealed bid procurement method should be used. The bid solicitation must contain the exact specifications for needed improvements, so all bidders are providing prices for the same scope of work. Likewise, if the city needs to make 5 public facilities ADA compliant to accommodate elderly persons and severely disabled adults in need of CDBG CV services, then the sealed bid procurement method should be used. The bid solicitation must also contain the exact specifications for the needed improvements at all 5 locations so that all bidders are providing prices for the same scope of work and bid prices may be compared apples to apples. Again, under sealed bids, the contract award is made on the basis of price and selecting from bids submitted by responsible contractors on a level playing field. For competitive proposals, there are 3 types of solicitations. First, request for proposal, or RFP. Second, request for qualifications, or RFQ. Third, request for information, or RFI. The method of publishing the contract opportunity is the same as sealed bids. Publish a notice to promote free and open competition. All evaluation factors must be published as part of the procurement document, including the relative importance of those evaluation factors. The best practice is that at least 2 responsive bids are received in order to award a contract. If only 1 bid is received, grantees must document all efforts made to increase the number of solicitations and promote fair and open competition. Awards can be made to the most responsive firm whose proposal is most advantageous to the program, which, unlike sealed bids, does not mean the lowest price bidder must be selected. Rather, price and other factors may be considered to determine the most advantageous offer based on the published evaluation factors. The following workflow depicts the timeline of key events for competitive proposals. Procurement actions begin with the development of a scope of work or description and an internal cost estimate for the goods and services to be purchased. Next, the method of procurement or type of solicitation must be appropriately selected. Then, the bid solicitation should be drafted, and bids should be solicited from an adequate number of vendors or qualified sources. Then, bids must be evaluated. The contract to purchase goods and services should be negotiated, and finally, the contract or purchase order should be executed and administered. If the city needs to procure a consultant to help the city and its subrecipients comply with CDBG CV requirements, then the city should publish a request for proposals, or RFP. The RFP should specify the type of services the city is seeking the consultant to provide. If the county needs to hire an architectural or engineering firm, the cheapest firm is not necessarily going to be the best firm to perform these services. Therefore, the county should issue a request for qualifications, or RFQ, to select the most qualified firm to perform the services. For both the sealed bid and competitive proposal procurement methods, documentation should include advertisements, independent cost estimates, the type of contract, scoring including adherence to solicitation, basis for contractor selection and/or rejection, price or cost analysis, as well as the basis of award and contract amount. So now, let's test your knowledge. Match each procurement method in the left column with one of the desired goods or services in the right column. The answers are provided on the next slide. Here are the answers. How'd you do? The selection of a contractor to rehabilitate the senior center should be procured using the sealed bid method if the cost is expected to be more than $250,000. The same is true for ADA improvements at multiple known locations. The selection of a consultant or architectural firm must be procured using the competitive proposals method, most often through a request for proposals or request for qualifications. The purchase of equipment can be procured using the small purchase method so long as the costs do not exceed $250,000 in the aggregate. The same is true for supplies less than $10,000. The procurement standards and information are located at the Uniform Administrative Requirements at 2 CFR 200 Subpart D. Thank you for attending this California Housing and Community Development training session on formal procurement methods. If you have any further questions, please contact your grant administrator.